Okay, so this morning we are going to chat really quickly about test-taking tips for families. There's going to be some test anxiety strategies. We'll talk about that initially, what parents can do and what students can do to kind of model or monitor their own behaviors, rather. And then we have a little bit of information from our reading specialist, math specialist, and study ed coordinator. So these are our testing dates. Third grade this year, normally we have an early test date and end test date. So third grade is going to test in May. Oh, thanks. Fourth grade will do their writing test in March and then their math and reading in May. The difference this year about the writing test is that it's just going to be one day, whereas in the past it's been 2 days, so day 1 and day 2 of writing, so that's nice. And then fifth grade is going to have math and reading, the initial test in March, science in May, and then if a retest will be offered in May for both math and reading if needed. The reason that this is scheduled the way that it is because math and reading are both, we want the students to pass them before going on to middle school, so they offer a retest in May and then also in the summer to give them as many opportunities to be successful as possible. One of the biggest differences about STAR this year is that it's shorter. So the time is still the same, but they've taken out the test question, or the field test question, thank you. And so the test, the amount of questions is fewer, which is great for our kids. So what to expect on testing days. Franklin's going to be a closed campus, so these are days when having to have lunch with your kiddos, probably not the best. We're going to try to keep a secure testing environment, so just wanting to keep control of who's here on those days. Do what?
Volunteers are not allowed in.
Right. So you're going to see test administrators and test monitors in the hallway. It's going to be a very controlled environment just to make sure that there's no mishaps or that any mishaps can be addressed quickly and efficiently. There are going to be children testing in individualized testing environments, so some will be in their regular general ed classroom, some will be in a small group, some will be individual, some will be in the computer lab just based on their individual needs. And then, of course, there's going to be a different schedule for the entire school on different testing days. There's going to be a much different schedule on days when we have 3rd, 4th, and 5th testing versus on days when we just have 3rd grade testing or just 5th grade testing. Okay, so a little tips. So anxiety is kind of a very misunderstood term, and so I kind of just want to touch on that briefly. Generally, anxiety is a feeling of worry, nervousness, or agitation in relation to experience such as performing in front of a large group, like me giving this presentation, competing in a sporting event, or taking a test. So there's different types of anxiety. So test anxiety specifically is feeling a sense of nervousness or distress before or during an exam. So students who suffer this might have difficulty concentrating, they might have mental blocks, distractibility, and there's a plethora of other things that they might see as well. So there's a big difference between fear and anxiety. Fear is initiated by something like an outside event, response to real danger, like a tornado. They hopefully are aware of the cause. The intensity of the response is proportional to the real danger. So if I see a tornado coming and I'm screaming and ducking for cover, that makes sense. And then normally, fear is temporary and acute. And then general anxiety is going to be initiated by internal feelings. It's going to be response to a perceived threat. Not always, we don't always know what's causing it. But I think the biggest thing here is the intensity of the response is not proportional. So a child who has severe test anxiety or anxiety in general, you might see them sweating, crying, sometimes throwing a tantrum, sometimes internally they're just completely having a meltdown. And the threat could be that they have a math test coming up. So it doesn't always make sense. And then, of course, it can be persistent and chronic, which is why we have things in place to help with that. So there's 2 types of anxiety, anticipatory and situational. Anticipatory means feeling distressed, which occurs while studying, so you're stressing about what's to come. And then situational is you're stressing when you are in the situation itself. It's important to be aware of which type of anxiety it is, because different strategies work differently for people. So these are possible causes. Now this list is not exhaustive, okay? So there are students that have disorders that might be diagnosable, if that's a word, that could cause these. But generally, it could be lack of preparation. I'm guilty of that big time, especially when I was in college. No, never, right? Past experiences, focusing too much on the outcome. I think especially with how stressful testing can be, a lot of kids think that testing can define them. And so that's a big, a lot of the kids I see for test anxiety, they're so focused on the outcome that it's going to be the end-all, be-all of their lives, the STAR test, and it simply isn't. They focus, they compare themselves to others, and then there could be issues going on outside of school distractions. Issues going on with families, issues going on with friends, etc. So there's 3 ways that it affects us: physiologically, behaviorally, and psychologically. Physiologically, let's talk about increased heartbeat, tense muscles, sweating, dry mouth. Behavioral, can't make decisions, express oneself appropriately. They're so distracted that they're having difficulty reading and understanding the questions, hard time organizing thoughts, and difficulty with memory. Psychological rather, feeling apprehensive or uneasy, feeling upset, and having self-doubt or negative self-talk. So all of these things I've talked about so far are important in identifying exactly what type of test anxiety a child has so that we can treat it more efficiently. So there's levels of anxiety, and you want to be in green. Everybody is going to have a sense of worry or anxiety, and that's normal for everyone to have. What we want to avoid is this red area of high anxiety, because that's when it kind of starts to control us rather than we can control it. Having too much low anxiety kind of is like feeling not motivated, and so that has different kinds of implications, as you can imagine. Okay, so ways that you can help at home, positive messages. So as a parent, instead of saying, you know reading is not your best subject, so hit the books, which as a parent, I know we want to say, just rewording that, how can I help you prepare for the test, so that way they're feeling kind of more supported rather than, more pressure on their plate. Instead of saying, you better worry about next week's test, you failed the last one, how do you feel about next week's test might be a better place to start. Or saying, you better study for the math test next week, it's going to be super hard. You might want to say, do you know what's going to be on the math test? Do you feel prepared? Now, granted, you know your children best and you know what works for them. This, for my child, would crash and burn, because anytime he feels any kind of criticism, he just falls apart. But he'll also, if I give him an inch, he might take a mile with this too. So you kind of have to scale and look at your children individually and see which one's going to work. Because sometimes tough love, they need a little bit, but just know in relation to test anxiety that this is where you want to fall. So I think one of the biggest things that we need to convey to our students is that the power of these tests is not this over-encompassing thing that's going to be the end-all be-all of our lives. It's not a measure of your overall intelligence or a measure of what you've accomplished, and it's definitely not a measure of your self-worth. Getting them to understand that it is a measure of what you scored on a particular day. But I don't know about you, but if I had a splitting headache during the STAR test, that's certainly going to impact the way I perform. So it is going to be dependent on the day. Grades are an indication of what your professor or teacher feels is important, or in the case of STAR, what the state of Texas feels is important. And then they are powerful enough to cause a delay or adjustment in reaching your goals, but they're not going to stop you forever. So again, being proactive, setting goals, doing things with your school counselor, family, teachers, can all be things to take control of this class. So we want to encourage children, and this is what we would do in a small group. You need to check your attitude. If you were sitting here saying, I can't, well, we all know that you're going to be less likely to be able to accomplish it. So we're going to practice positive self-talk. It seems easy in the moment. It's not. Even as adults, we are probably they're probably more guilty than children of negative self-talk, and they see us doing that. So even when it's not in relation to test anxiety, trying to be as positive as possible is important for our children to see us positive. kind of the idea of leaving it at the door. Again, that's a super, super difficult thing. So modeling, trying to do that, role-playing, leaving issues at the door. Because just saying, okay, today when I walk in for the STAR test, I'm going to leave that my, parents are having a really big fight this morning, I'm just going to forget it at the door. Well, that's not necessarily realistic. A lot of children can't separate that, and so teaching them skills to do so is important. Like I said, this is for general test anxiety that a school counselor, is equipped to work with. A child or an adult that has chronic anxiety or depression, they would see a more specifically trained counselor or psychologist. So this is an all-encompassing list. So, and then again, this PowerPoint will be available to everybody, but these are some relaxation techniques that we teach the kids in small group to just kind of to tense and relax. And so we go through these slides and you can read them, but they're just basically little body exercises that they can do sitting in their chair on STAR Day to help them first become aware of how their body is feeling and then how to address that to help them to calm down and relax and do their best on the test. So we would go through these steps and like I said, role play and practice on STAR Day. They are comfortable trying this. There's a 3 deep breaths technique. We like to tell children to put their hands on their tummies so they really have to concentrate on filling up their bodies. We call it belly breathing. And again, you want to practice this because sometimes kids will do this to where they are making their heart rates rise. That's like the opposite of what you want to do. So this is something that you would want to practice with your children to where they relax in breath. They're getting oxygen to their brain. I often tell the kiddos, research shows oxygen to your brain, you think more clearly. Deep breaths help you. It's not just an idea your counselor came up with that says, oh yeah, this will help, just breathe. Yeah. Body scan is kind of similar to the first one, but you're just, again, becoming aware of how your body feels and then releasing tension in the muscles and continuing until hopefully it's helping you work through your anxiety. Guided imagery, similar. You're becoming aware of how you're feeling. You're taking your brain to another place, to a relaxing place, calming down, and then trying to keep that feeling in place as you come back to the test. This is a really good thing for adults to use and moms, especially whenever your children are screaming and you're like, oh, I just want to be on a beach somewhere. Guided imagery works, but again, you have to practice it. It's not something that I can just hear about and try on the test. It's not going to be as effective as if I'm using it day in and day out and have to practice it. How much you're doing so. Okay, so these are strategies I can actually use during the test. This is, again, what we will go over with the class, taking a break, asking questions. Now, of course, asking questions, you might get the same rote answer from the teacher depending on what the situation is. CDBs are going to be different than STARS, and different than benchmarks, different than a Friday test. So it will be situational. Moving on to an easier question, positive self-talk, relaxation exercises. So these are all things that we can practice using, hopefully before the STAR test comes. So again, they're comfortable using them on day one. So how we help here. So teachers, of course, they're preparing from day one. They're having class discussions, they've had practice tests, they're practicing these relaxation techniques, they're practicing these testing techniques. Teachers go through and give them strategies of what to underline and what to do here and here. So it's not like the first time they test, it's the first time that they're using these strategies. They have opportunities to practice. As counselors, we will be addressing test anxiety 3rd through 5th grade, but not so much on an anxiety level, but more so what to expect, simple things that all students can find beneficial in our guidance lessons. Small group are going to be for those kiddos that struggle a little bit more, and then those kiddos, if needed, they can certainly request individual lessons. Normally, small group is the biggest way that we reach our kiddos. If a child is struggling so much they're individual, we have a huge list of people that we can refer out to local community agencies that can help as well. So from Ms. Besh, she says these are some tips that would help prepare for the reading test. So identifying which story the genre is. Again, these are things that they're practicing with their teacher, but it's going to be extremely important they remember to do so on the test. So is it fiction, poetry? Again, this PowerPoint will be available to you, so you can go back and look over these tips with your kiddo. It's nonfiction. Excuse me. A few questions that you're going to look at and identifying how you're going to proceed with that type of text. And then if the text has graphics, looking at captions, looking at the graphs, looking at the maps, just different ways that we're going to approach each type of text. From Ms. Gibson, our reading specialist, this is something that they teach school-wide, fast math. So your kiddos have heard about this, hopefully. If not, they will be hearing about it. This is something they can use to structure the way that they tackle these math problems. So we're looking at their facts understanding, their action representation, their solve, and then they think. So facts, action, solve, and think. Just these little, what is this, a homonym? What's it called? When there's like acronym. Having my coffee, okay. But so giving these are things that I use. They're tried and true, and I know that in college, I took a test taking class, and that was one of the biggest things is using acronyms to remember, because you have so much on your plate that these little things you jot them down as you go, they can help you. So again, this is how you're going to use those fact strategies specifically. You can go over that with your kiddos. This is an example of something we might make in a small group for testing anxiety. Just something that is a visual, hands-on, helps them to remember exactly what to do with all of those anxiety feelings and what do I do and how do I tackle this test. So Ms. Crosco, our spec ed coordinator, she is talking about the things that we know, but so often we kind of forget. So a good night's sleep is so important. And it's so hard when they know that they have a STAR test coming up the next day or a CDB that they've been studying for. So having a routine at night so that a child can just feel that consistency, getting a good night's sleep is important. Of course, routine homework is important. She says 5 to 7 minutes of journal notes, if applicable. Students should be working on iReady, iStation, think through math, review concepts. These are missing. So these are interventions that we offer to students at school to help them if they're struggling in different areas. Of course, reading every night to build stamina so that these passages aren't so exhausting to them. And then asking inferencing questions to your child as, what do you think would happen if? Now, this doesn't just have to be during a story. You can be driving down the road and asking these type of questions. But these are those higher level thinking questions that kind of get them to structure their thinking about things typically, so that way it's very easy to apply that to a test. That's all I have for you today. So we'll switch over to our fabulous other presenters.
And sometimes too, not just the STAR, but the CDBs, and we're seeing that kids get really nervous about those CDBs. Like they're going to probably start, I think they start in first grade, right, the CDBs? Or second grade? I want to say first grade or second. I want to say first grade, like they take 1 or 2, but even like the kids, it's kind of like basically to see what they know or what they've learned. And even at that, I mean, they make it like a very testing environment situation. No talking. They spread out their desk. It's just to kind of prepare them. So,
which seems daunting, but it's also a good thing. So that way, I'm started. It's not something they've never done.
Right. They train them like early.
I know Sam's in second grade. They're doing it this year.
Yeah,
I know she is.
Yeah. So maybe you're right in second grade.
How do you know if your kids have that? Because my kids have never, I have no idea if they
have testing anxiety. You would know. So,
yeah.
I mean,
I
would probably
know.
Juby is freaked out about that.
You're going to see it on homework or on testing days. My stomach hurts, very tearful. The teacher's going to report something.
Right.
Like I said, and we looked at that one slide, general anxiety is normal, and it's a good thing. You want them to be worried because that means they're valuing education and valuing doing their best.
Right. They want to impress.
Yes.
Right, and that's a good thing. You want to foster that. But you don't want it to get to that red level like we talked about, to where they are having sleepless nights and getting themselves sick. And so those type of things are going to be things that you can't just overlook. You're going to notice. And sometimes it takes one small group round and they kind of, something clicks and they realize, okay, this test doesn't own me. I'm in control, and it's good.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's things that, I personally had test anxiety when it came to math. Probably still today. I just don't take any pulls, right? I don't count.
I know.
Right. So you would know.
I'm worried that maybe there's already homework in
Well, and one more thing I want to add too is you don't go into the classroom and present on, okay, this is anxiety and this is specifically all these things because all of a sudden then everybody has test anxiety. And so we give them tips and strategies to help with their general worry and how to help them ease their fears or nervousness, because everyone's going to have that to a degree. But those kiddos that we're going to talk deeply about anxiety with, we're going to save that for those kiddos that teachers, parents, or the child themselves has come and requested.
Right.